Hello, everyone. It's the Deplorable Thomas Milo from the Reality Check TV YouTube channel. How's it going? Just thought I'd record a rant video just on some stuff. I haven't uploaded a video in a little bit. The Reality Check TV crew did record a live stream a few days ago. It's up on the channel if you want to check it out. It was me and my dear friend Zach and Sean. We talked, I believe, some about Trump's tax returns. We definitely spent a long time debating the Islamic immigration and refugee situation, all the various statistics on that, and it was a very long-winded debate. Got into the history of Islam in Europe and all that kind of interesting stuff. Chatting shit, really. I'm sure some of the facts about the history have got to be wrong. Certainly, current affairs were well marinated in, so to speak, from all the research that we do and everything that we keep up with, but who knows where the discussion of history went from. But Sean is very much into that kind of stuff, and he has a couple of other good friends who I do hope to have on the channel at some point to talk about some of the history of the interactions, wars, all kinds of stuff between the Islamic and Christian worlds. I think that would be an interesting one just for some perspective on our current day situation. But then we also did get into some reaction to Trump's first debate against Hillary, the second of which is coming up on Sunday. Perhaps that's what I'll start talking about. Maybe that's what I'll start talking about first. Though I will remind you that if you are interested in any of the articles or news that's going on at the moment, certainly any of the topics that I talk about in these rant videos or stuff that's covered in the Debunked podcast, which is the name for our live streams, or anytime we really have the whole crew together. A couple more people who will be soon coming on the channel. Very excited for you to meet them. All love to chat shit. And anyway, so any of those materials that we're talking about, a lot of the evidence sources, eyewitness accounts, video reports, all of those good things from which we get our information, base our opinions on, and debate about is on the Reddit page. I've left it in the description, link in the description of all our videos, and as it will be in the description of this one also. But if you just want to go there yourself, it's reddit.com/realitychecktv. So please check it out. All kinds of goodies there. You can also follow me on Twitter at RDFCFUT15. RDFCFUT15. That is Twitter page. Handle is Thomas Milo. And definitely feel free to hit me up, troll me, chat shit, whatever kind of stuff you want to throw at me. I would absolutely love it. You can talk to me about sports too. We don't just talk about politics on the channel. I think that's a lot of what we want to do. Certainly, what I want to do because of how crucial this particular election is. At the risk of sounding cliche, this is perhaps the most important one ever. Just looking at where we would go under Hillary and where we could go under Trump. I mean, it could not be more important if you care about your rights and freedoms. But hey, big baseball fan, getting ready to watch the Indians and the Red Sox tonight. Oh my God, is that going to be a dandy? Holy crap. Indians have some injuries. I'm a big Indians fan, in case you were curious. We've got some injuries in the old pitching staff, which was the best in baseball this year. So we'll see how that goes. I've got my fingers crossed. Maybe the Cavs winning a title will help get rid of the jinx or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, one of my good friends, Lewis, and I might be streaming actually on the channel. We might stream the playoffs on MLB 2K the show. We might go ahead and see how the playoffs should end, or how they end when we play each other. So if you are into baseball, keep a lookout for that this weekend. But anyway, enough about all of that kind of introductory crap. The debate this Sunday. This will be an interesting one because I think this debate will really show us in many ways how this election could go down. The first one, of course, it probably won't have quite the same ratings the first one did. I wish that Trump could have knocked it out of the park a little bit better in the first one. Some people really hated his performance, and I totally understand why. He most certainly had advisors in his ear telling him to, back off, be presidential. You can't attack a woman. It's gonna look like look like you're proving the point that you're a sexist. All of that crap. Um, I thought he still did well, nonetheless. I still thought he managed to be somewhat of his humorous self. He is a very funny guy on many occasions. He's a very cool cat, honestly, and I thought he managed to do relatively well. Though it was quite obvious that he kept the gloves on a number of issues. He totally could have absolutely crushed her in a number of areas. I wish he would have made a bigger deal out of the emails, certainly when they are grilling him on his tax returns, which are really a non-issue, considering the fact, first of all, that he is absolutely correct about the fact that a lot of the financials you have to file in order to run for president are much more detailed than your personal tax returns in terms of your overall wealth and sort of what the financial situation is. So I wish he had hit her on the emails, wish he'd hit her on Benghazi. He didn't do nearly enough, there's no doubt. And I think you could see his frustration at the end there. Certainly in the CNN interview right after he walked off stage, he talked about how he pulled some punches when it came to Bill Clinton and his history of assault and violence. And you could even see, at the end there, he did say, I was going to come up here, say some very nasty things, but I decided not to do it. And I think at that point he knew that he really should have been much rougher with her. Not even necessarily rough at her, but just do a much better job of hammering home the point about her experience. I think he did a very good job when he was mentioning, that her experience is not the right kind of experience. If you think the disaster of Benghazi, if you think, the crazy, awful, corrupt shit that she's done for all these years is good experience, I mean, are you nuts? It certainly was rigged. I'd see people all over the internet laughing their ass off about him claiming that his mic was rigged. But guess what? It was rigged, and that doesn't mean that it was rigged on TV. Yes, everyone could hear him at home. We're talking about in the debate hall. Talking about in the debate hall, people past the first couple rows couldn't hear him, and you know what? The debate commission admitted that. They've come out and said, yes, there was issues with his microphone. It wasn't really working properly. Could that be an accident? Possibly, but we know how much things have been rigged in the past. We know from the digital evidence that she does wear an earpiece. We know that for a fact. All you people are going to sit there and say MSNBC debunked it. Oh, she wasn't wearing an earpiece. You're nuts. Guess what? If you actually freeze frame the MSNBC footage and you can go do this on YouTube. Go look up the footage. You freeze frame it where they look at her ear, and if you blow it up and zoom it up, you can see the pixelation right where the earpiece would be. You can see the clear picture all around it, and then you can see the little bit of pixelation right in the middle. They didn't even take the time to digitally remove it. All they did was pixelate over a little bit. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's like popping a balloon with a pin. That is how easy these people are. They're absolutely absurd. So anyway, we know that it's rigged in many ways. Not saying this could be rigged or it could not be rigged, but it's certainly not. It's certainly not a fair fight. The fact that the official count is that Lester Holt interrupted Trump over 40 times, and interrupted Hillary like 7. And if Lester's going to sit there and challenge Trump on tax returns, on the fact that he, supposedly said he was for the war, which is horseshit, I could break that down in a second. Perhaps I will. He sat there and tried to pretend to grill him and all that stuff, but said hardly anything to Hillary is totally absurd. And, even if Trump was for the war, even if his tax returns, there was something shady about that, I guess that would depend on what it was. There isn't anything shady about it, but even if there was, that still could not stack up to the absolute bloodlust to the nature of so many of the Clintons' crimes, many of which, this is not some conspiracy theory. There's all kinds of sites. There's WND.com, Jermaine Corsi's website, who had a great interview just the other day that I saw, who's broken down on his website how the Clintons have been using oversee shell companies to funnel their money through so they don't have to pay any taxes. That's way more crooked. What Trump was doing with his taxes, declaring losses, is completely legal. And one of the cornerstones of our society, tax forgiveness on businesses, is one major thing. They used to put you in debtor's prison a long time ago. If you were in debt, they'd put you in prison and take away your assets. And if you didn't have enough assets to equal your debt, then you would just stay there indefinitely because you couldn't work off the debt because you're stuck in a prison cell. You're not doing anything to create value with which to pay your debt, so people will just rot in prison forever. Does that sound liberal and free and all of those great things? No, that's ridiculous. So tax forgiveness is a wonderful thing about our company. We can talk about how perhaps certain regulations or loopholes should be closed and or fixed or altered for people at the billions upon billions level, which certainly there are crooked people who take advantage of maybe either that provision or certainly other provisions. I'm pretty sure that Prison Planet broke it down. InfoWars certainly broke it down. There was a lot of people that covered the fact that the New York Times did exactly the same thing that Trump did, though actually in the years where they declared losses, they ended up getting tax refunds. They got like $3 billion in tax refunds. So that is totally crooked. So there's what Trump did was totally legal. Hopefully that should wrap up the tax issue. But getting back to the debate, it was not balanced. The moderators, I guess everyone says it started with Candy Crowley in 2008 in the Democratic primary debates between Clinton and Obama. That Candy Crowley would sit there and grill Hillary because they wanted Obama to win, and so they would sit there and grill her and punish her and get in her face all the time and not let her talk, and they would hardly interrupt Obama at all. So the thing is, really, you shouldn't even have a moderator. If it's going to be a real debate, then the two candidates should face each other. They should sit down at a table and look each other in the eye and talk about it themselves. And if you want to have a moderator, the only point of the moderator should be to sit there, and let each other finish their statements. You certainly should not even have, certainly. I mean, you could argue about time allotted to each other. It's kind of ridiculous in the end because 2 minutes to explain a tax plan? Are you insane? And then you complain about the fact, oh, well, give us the specifics. Well, those aren't specifics. Well, how about you give me more than fucking 30 seconds to answer the question? So it's so ridiculous how they're run. Whether or not, not even getting into the more rigged and or messed with aspects of the specific debates, the way they run debates are just insane. The moderator should shut up. And only if they both start talking over each other to the point where no one can glean any meaning, then you go, hey, you shut up, let them finish their sentence. Okay, now you shut up and let them finish their sentence. If there is to be a moderator at all, their role should not be anything greater than that. So anyway, as far as this weekend's debate, I think it will be better. I think it was quite clear that you could see Trump had some regrets about how he went about this last debate. Reagan had bad debates. Nixon had bad debates, famously in history. Many times it was the first of the debates. I think people say Nixon had an absolutely awful first debate. I think they say Reagan running for re-election had a pretty bad first debate that time around as well. That might be interesting. Maybe I'll go watch those sometime. And it's like anything else. I mean, if you haven't done a ton of them before, and he's done some, obviously did all the ones in the primaries, he just mauled those people. Though the only thing that I would agree with some of Trump's advisors is that it does look bad attacking a woman, that people do have a certain, and maybe this is even more than just the social justice warrior kind of crap that's permeated society. I think it really maybe is something ingrained that even men, maybe even men more than anyone else, don't want to see. They would not enjoy seeing a woman attacked. I think there is something ingrained about that we do want to take care of. There is something. How do I say this? There's something. I don't know. We want to. You don't. It just doesn't sit right with people to see a woman attacked in any way, even if she is just an absolute rubber serial killer mask, faced of a person like Hillary is. But even still, he could be extremely harsh with her, and I think he will go a great deal more towards that end of the spectrum in this debate. I mean, at a certain point, when someone is a criminal, you've just got to say, "Hey, look, you did a lot of horrible shit, and here it is." Apparently, was it Nixon? Someone, or was it maybe it was a Democrat, maybe it was Dukakis. I don't know. There was someone they were talking about. Or no, it was. I know who it was. It was Ross Perot in the '90s, running against H.W. Bush and Clinton, and he brought, I think, a bullet point list of stuff that he wanted to talk about, and that would be great if Trump brought a list with like quotes, with like sources, and says you can check it here. At least people still find ways to spin it and twist it and ignore it, say it's fake and all that, but I certainly am one in favor of putting quotes down on a paper and showing links and articles and sources and facts. Put it in someone's face that this is absolute horseshit. When they talk about ridiculous shit, whether it's the gender pay gap, whether it's you said this insulting to this person, or the victim playing, that whole fiasco about this Miss Universe model that he called Miss Piggy is just so over the top. I mean, if you listen to the video clip, he actually complimented her as well at one point in the clip, and you signed a contract. It's your job to be a certain weight. As awful and horrible as that is, and I totally hate that. I am familiar with. I've known girls in that profession who were models and who were dancers, in that sort of line of work where you have to be extremely fit. And honestly, a lot of those industries are pervasive with the real body issues. Clinton and this whole SJW regressive kind of movement wants to talk about body shaming. There are serious body issues and body image issues that reach kind of this neurotic and even psychotic. They're rife with anorexia and all kinds of stuff like that. It can get really horrible. So, I mean, I'm not saying I love the industry as a whole. I don't think it's a very nice thing, and I don't think it's healthy for someone to be constantly worried about the way their figure looks. But at the same time, you did sign a contract to look a certain way. That was the point. Is you decided for yourself that you wanted to go into that profession of looking a certain way. That's literally your profession. What you do for your job that you signed up for, with the full knowledge of what that entails, is I'm going to look a certain way for this particular industry. That's your job. And so it's and any old regular person ought to be pretty familiar with the sexualization of advertising in the West, whether it's makeup commercials or they sexualize everything. I mean, they sexualize. Joe Rogan talked about in one of his stand-up specials about the ridiculousness of one of the Just for Men commercials that had like a baby boy and at this nightclub dancing around with these very adultly dressed and looking female women at a nightclub partying, and they're all partying, have a great ass time, and it's extremely sexualized, and it's so bizarre and weird too. With the baby, it's just, he was making the point that if the genders were reversed and it was a female baby and men, that would be like, I mean, you go to jail for even writing that down for good reason. But so there's a ridiculous sexualization of society, but at the same time, you knew exactly what you were getting into. So why you want to, blame somebody else when they fire you for not doing what you said you were going to do? We have to be able to hold each other to our word. It's the only way you have any kind of honesty. That's the only way you can even interact with people or conduct any kind of business or anything in society. It doesn't matter what the topic is, doesn't matter what the industry or profession is. People have to be held to their word. Plus, of course, it comes out that she's done all kinds of crazy shit. She apparently drove the getaway car for a murder and did a bunch of all kinds of other horrible things. People laugh. I guess she ended up on, was it either a reality TV show or something that was actually pornographic in nature, and she's having a sex scene that was naked and shit, which I wouldn't complain about whatsoever. That's not necessarily a bad thing. To some people, I suppose it's offensive, but do what you want. I don't care what you do with your life, but certainly driving a getaway car for a murder, and as well as there was some other things that happened with this person as well. And I guess even CNN asked her about this, and she goes, "Oh, everybody has a past." Apparently, I should go watch it. People are talking about how crazy it was. But anyway, Clinton's bringing up crazy, stupid ass shit like that, and I wish he would have hit back harder on that, especially when it comes to actual things and actions that they've done in their careers. Clinton has starved thousands of children. She murdered a bunch of children in the Middle East. Madeleine Albright was asked about was in Iraq. Maybe it was the Iraq war under W that she voted for. That killed, what was it, 500,000 children, which was more children than were killed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And Madeleine Albright's sitting there like, "Oh, yeah, no, that was a good price to pay." I mean, what are you people, insane? Who the fuck are you people? Children starved and died in Haiti when the Clintons took all that money. I think it was like 2% of the money was actually spent. Maybe it was 10%. Even that would be generous. Of all the millions upon millions that that the Bush family and the Clinton families raised through the Clinton Foundation for Haiti ever actually was employed for, building shelters and structures and rebuilding their infrastructure, like water supply and all that kind of stuff. Haiti's in rubble, and now that there's a hurricane hitting them, I mean, they're even, that's even worse now. I mean, that is a hellhole, that place. Thanks to the Clintons, largely. So they've murdered people across the globe. And I do think he'll hit her harder on this weekend. I certainly hope so. And if he doesn't, we've got a problem. I think if he does not go after her on stuff like that on Haiti, which now with this hurricane, Haiti's going to be brought back into the national attention again. And he better go after her. I mean, it's the perfect segue into talking about the corruption that went on there. That could be about the worst thing that the Clintons did. So he's got to talk about that. He's really, really got to. Speaking of overseas wars, things like that. That actually, I might as well talk for a moment about Trump, them grilling Trump at the first debate on him supposedly being for the war in Iraq. What they're attributing that to is to an interview on Howard Stern's show that I believe was sometime after we went in, and I think it was 2004. I'll go check again. It was either 2003, 2004. Something like that. And Howard Stern asked him, are you down for the war? What do you think about this? And Trump goes, yeah, well, maybe, I guess. And I think the statement was made more out of the sense of we support the troops, largely and thanks to ridiculous propaganda from the Bush family that led us into that war. And that would be a whole nother episode. The warmongering of the Bush family is just like nothing I've ever seen. Like nothing anyone's ever even heard of. They might outdo the Clintons on that front, just from having led us into these major conflicts in the Middle East. Though the Clintons have had their share of shit go down in that way too. Hillary made sure that a lot of Eastern European countries were bombed mercilessly when they were in office. They're pretty awful too. But when it comes to actually putting the U.S. military into wars which are really, really evil, the Bushes probably win it all. But in any case, thanks to a lot of the propaganda, everyone, you might recall, everyone had those bumper stickers. Support the troops. We stand with our troops. That's one of the things about the patriotism of regular Americans, sure, especially in the South, perhaps, that they really want to, they wanted to prey upon and capture upon. Oh, well, you have to support the U.S. military. I mean, people always support the ones of our population who want to defend freedom, and so they spin it as this freedom fighting thing, we're defending freedom from the evil terrorists who blew up, the Twin Towers. Oh, okay, well, we got to go get them. Surely you couldn't be against getting them, right? And of course, oh God, I could go into 9/11 forever and how that was created by the fact that the U.S. and the United Nations wouldn't allow Iraq to sell their oil for anything other than the U.S. dollar so that they can make profit on the interest rates. Very long story. Where was I? Right, Trump supporting the war. So yeah, I think out of a desire to want to support the troops and say, yeah, sure, yeah, we support the troops and I'll support the war. That's when he said that. But he never supported starting the war. And isn't that what this is about? Whether or not you support starting ridiculous foreign wars? He said many, many, many times since then, I believe in 2006, and again a couple years later in 2008, certainly he kept talking about how it's a big mistake. But the real end-all, be-all to this issue is that he said in a book he wrote in 1998, he wrote about the fact that Osama bin Laden is a big threat. Al-Qaeda is a major threat. They want to attack us. They say in their videos all the time they want to kill us. They publish this all the time, radical Islam that goes around mutilating the genitals of poor women in all other countries, in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, that goes around torching people who they consider heretics, according to the Muslim faith, that aren't for the most radical, extreme interpretations of it, are killed. And he's saying this is a big problem. This is an enormous problem, and we've got to do something about it. And so you need to take out bin Laden, you've got to take out Al-Qaeda, and do not go in a full-scale war. You have to do something about them, but this is, what he was writing about is that this is not about a war. We're not declaring war on Iraq. The thing is that Iraq was actually the good country in this situation. Was Saddam Hussein a good guy? Well, no, not really. But they had a decent number of human rights in that country. And Saddam Hussein was very good at executing terrorists. Excuse me, I'm having a bit of a drink of water. Saddam Hussein was very effective at killing terrorists. That doesn't mean that there weren't authoritarian aspects about the Iraqi government that was really not good. Doesn't mean that he was a good person himself. Doesn't mean that improvements couldn't have made, but he didn't put up with terrorist groups. And the fact that he was in power and that the Iraqi government and nation was strong meant that there was a stalemate between Iraq and Iran and between most of the other Islamic nations in the Middle East, which meant that, even though it's always been a violent area, because since the 70s when the CIA started funding it, there's been, a radicalization of certain parts of Islam, so at least since then, but I mean, the land has been fought over horribly for years. Actually, we get into some of that in the recent live stream that's posted on the channel now. It's a blood-soaked land, most unfortunately. But anyway, it kept it at a relatively peaceful state. Relatively. Emphasis on relatively, but it was not quite the hellhole that it is now. But Trump was never for going in for a full-scale war. He was saying, look, by taking out Iraq, you're crazy. You're going to destroy everything. He was writing this in a book in 1998, few years before this was even a thing. He was, he likes to brag about how he calls things correctly, and, people get mad at him because he's supposedly, too macho. And, what do you mean you called that? He did in 1998. He published a book and he said, foreign wars are a mistake, and you need to get rid of the radicals. And what happened? We kept backing the radicals. We're backing ISIS in Syria currently. I had some Hillary bots call me out on Twitter for saying that we're backing the ISIS forces and that the Russians, that we're antagonizing the Russians over Syria. Well, guess what? You're an idiot if you think that isn't the case. And I love it. One guy said, do your homework. You do your homework, buddy. There's a video that talks exactly about what I'm saying that Paul Joseph Watson shared on his YouTube channel. It's up on the Reddit page. It's one of the most recent ones I posted, and it's of a citizen reporter. It's of a young woman in Syria who made a YouTube video in English. She speaks excellent English. I don't know anything about her, but she seems to be very smart. But she's in Syria. She's a Syrian citizen, and she's talking about what's happening there. You going to tell someone in Syria they don't know what's going on? The U.S. recently, I think just last week, was bombing Syrian airports. The Syrian troops and the Russians have been wiping out ISIS, and they actually wiped out a lot of the ISIS troops, which only came into power because Hillary Clinton's State Department backed them. You know, Assad, again, is not the perfect... The Assad situation is very much like the Iraq situation with Saddam Hussein. Assad is not a perfect guy. He does some not great shit, there's no doubt. No doubt. But he is not as evil as people like Ahmadinejad in Iran. He's not as evil as the people who back ISIS. So Trump was thoroughly against all of this. And they're trying to set up these ridiculous talking points based upon no evidence. Oh, well, you went on Howard Stern in 2003 or whenever it was and said you're for the war. No. I think my interpretation is that he was essentially saying he's for the troops. I mean, once you're, it was despite the fact that a lot of the anti-war people during the Vietnam era had legitimate claims that we shouldn't be in foreign wars. They are correct about a lot of things. It's not good to have us entangled in ridiculous, foreign affairs. That's not, I don't believe it's our place in the world. But the fact that, the sentiment during the Vietnam War is that the people actually were against the military. And sure, you can be against the management structures in the military. You can be against the people who are giving the orders. You can be against, the people who are calling the shots, the government, all of that. Sure, that's absolutely legitimate. But why are you getting angry at enlisted men and women who are just doing what they're told to do? And I think that that's mainly what Trump was after when he's saying, yeah, sure, support the war. I support the poor young men and women who are over there. Why do you think he's so strong on veterans affairs? Why do you think that's one of the first things he's talked about from the start is taking care of veterans? He's polling at like 85% of military members and veterans. He's going to crush it there. Because I do believe he does genuinely care. He does genuinely care. I thought one of my favorite moves of his, it was one of the ballsiest, biggest fuck you moves to the Republican establishment, was back during the primary season when they were going to have a debate, and I don't remember why. I don't know if he had some contention for how they were doing the debate or where or when. There was some issue with it. But he said, you know what, yeah, I don't really need to go to that one. Go fuck yourselves. I'm going to do a rally for the veterans. And he raised like $5 million or something. And it was just, it was so great. It was so great. I love the balls on this guy. Absolutely love it. So he's totally against the war. He's totally against foreign wars. This is an issue where Bernie Sanders fans, we really agree on this. And this, you really, really should think about voting for Trump. Trump has a lot of respect for Bernie in many ways. Yeah, did he call him Crazy Bernie? Yeah, and, some of my best friends are Bernie fans. One of my very, very, very best friends in the world, whom you will hear on the podcast very soon on this channel. He is a brilliant dude. Brilliant guy. We disagree on a lot of things, but he's my brother in most respects. Very, very smart guy. He's a big worked for the Bernie campaign. Was all in. He was working hours and hours every day at the campaign offices, knocking on doors. And tell you what, if someone like Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or any of these other establishment shills had been the Republican nominee and Bernie was the Democratic nominee, I probably would be voting for Bernie Sanders, because at least Bernie Sanders he gained his popularity through organic, real grassroots support. People love Bernie because he is concerned, at least he seemed to be. I mean, he sold out to Hillary there in the end. I think that was very weak of him. I really wish that he would have attacked her on a great number of things, because she is a horrible person, and I don't think he did a good enough job of standing up for himself. And he's made statements that I don't agree with, and, we don't see the collectivism in the same way. I think it's been collectivism and socialism has been used as a siren song by globalist and big world banks to entice people into giving up more of their sovereignty, giving up more of their money, giving up more of their lives. That's a whole other story, which really we should get into because it's very important. But anyway, back to Trump and Bernie. Bernie is a good guy, and he means, and I, at least for most of it, and I would like to think so. I do still pretty much believe he meant what he said, and he believes in what he said. He's not a criminal. And it was totally organic. There's so little left in this country that is not propaganda, that is not just utter absurdity, utter shite, that I absolutely love and admire Bernie for that. And Bernie and Trump are so much more alike than people realize. And this, on the foreign wars issue, is one where I really hope Bernie people could take another look at Trump and consider voting for Trump, because so many, and they all hate Hillary. They can't stand her. There was 10,000 of them protesting outside the Democratic convention. You know, it's funny, people thought the Republican convention was going to be the insane one with, all the infighting going on in the establishment party, them trying to figure out a way to just hand over all the delegates to Ted Cruz and, abolish all the primaries, which is, about the most authoritarian, horrible dictatorship of a move that I ever heard of. That was really scary for a while. But people thought that it was going to be the Republican convention that was going to be one of the most historic and crazy with protests, things like that. But I don't think it was as crazy as the Democratic convention. You had Bernie fans inside the convention hall having their signs taken away. They were actually shouting down the Hillary people in the convention hall for the first couple of days until the campaign officials started going, Jesus, we can't have this on live TV. God, get rid of them. So they hate her for good reason. But anyway, I need to get to my point, which is that Trump and Bernie are very similar. Now, they're the exact same in all the issues that they want to attack. Both of them genuinely and sincerely recognize the problems that we have with the disappearing middle class, that we have with the constant foreign wars, with the constant propping up of giant deceptions like, really the ISIS has been sponsored, backed, and created in order to create a constant war for the military-industrial complex in order to force everyone onto the U.S. dollar, and so that the mining of fossil fuels will always be exchanged for the U.S. dollar, so they can continue to push people onto one world currency. So this whole terrorist thing is just designed to culturally push you further and further onto the Democratic reservation, so they can control you further and further. And Bernie, maybe he doesn't see it exactly in the same way, but he did see the problems with foreign wars, as does Trump. They both campaign against it. They both want to do more to fix healthcare. They both want to do. They both hate the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the most evil institution just about that there is, and I probably should do an entire episode just on privatized central banks, because that's actually kind of the whole crux of this political struggle, kind of the entire crux of this. If you have privatized centralized banks, they essentially print your currency and then force you to pay interest rates to use your own currency. That's how they make their money. That's why so much of prices and inflation is caused by all of that. Interest rates keep going up because of that. Your mortgage payments keep going up because of that. And it's a whole rotten Pandora's box of a shitbag. But Trump and Bernie recognize these same things. And if you are for an open democratic discussion on how to fix this, you don't have to necessarily agree with Trump on how to fix all these things. But it's better than having someone who is a crook who is going to sell off every single position once she becomes president, and just out of a absolutely insane drive for money and power. Absolutely insane. It was just proved that Obama was using a fake name to communicate with her in her emails. The FBI just released that. That's fact. The FBI released that a couple weeks ago. That really happened. It's been gone over many times as the FBI released it that she was selling ambassadorships and all kinds of stuff to the highest bidders. So if you don't want to be further manipulated, if you don't, she is the representative of big banks. Because a lot of the modern sort of downfall of our economy and of jobs and all that kind of stuff started in real earnest under W. Bush. It's been attributed to the Republican Party as though they're the big supporters of big banks and big business. And they are. Don't get me wrong. And I am no Republican. I only register as a Republican so I can vote for Trump. Believe me, I can't stand the fuckers. They're such awful, horrible people. Horrible people. Ted Cruz's whole campaign was privately funded by Goldman Sachs. Horrible, horrible, horrible people. But the thing is that people don't have the same suspicion of the Democratic Party. They don't realize, 99% is the first time this ever happened, that 99% of all the big corporations' campaign donations have all gone to Hillary Clinton. She has enormous billionaire backers. Soros gives her billions of dollars. So all of this money is behind her. She is the representative, the big banks. Her husband is what started this economic downfall by working with Newt Gingrich to repeal Glass-Steagall, which allowed speculative loans, allowed the big banks to give mortgages and loans to people who they knew could never afford to pay them back. And they knew they were going to jack up the interest rates so that people couldn't afford them and they would default. The banks collect everything. It's like the worst game of Monopoly ever, where they just clean the fuck up. So it started with Clinton, and it will end with her if she's elected. Which is why, this is why I actually think in many ways discussions of policy is almost irrelevant in this election. We should always be thinking about how should an ideal society be set up. I totally agree. But it's going to be flushed down the toilet if Hillary's president. It's going to be over. Which is why I would really beg Bernie fans to think about voting for Trump. Doesn't mean you have to agree with him or love him or think he's the perfect person. I don't either. I don't think he's a perfect man. Who is a perfect man? Will really any among us stand up and say that they're a perfect person? Don't we all have our flaws? I just think it's rather apparent that it's over if she wins. The big businesses, the big banks, the corporations will take over and they will win. There will be no more free speech. You won't be able to pay for anything. You'll have nothing. If Trump wins, will things be perfect? Not necessarily. Actually, if Trump wins, there's going to be massive economic sanctions levied against us instantly. And the corporatists are going to freak out and do the same thing that they're doing to England right now by deflating the British currency, by deflating the English markets, and they're essentially fighting economic war against them. That's the problem with Russia right now. Once they kicked out the globalists, they're having massive problems right now. So they're doing all kinds of things like opening stores 24/7, hours a day, open 24/7, doing all kinds of things to try and help keep their economy going because they're so entrenched right now. The globalists are just launching everything they've got at them. They're very angry, and so the same thing will happen. But it's what's the quote in The Dark Knight? What did Alfred say? It's sometimes the night is darkest before the dawn, and that is true in this situation. But if we elect Trump, things may not be perfect. Things certainly won't be perfect. Things will probably be very difficult at first. It is a massive problem to try and unentrench all of these people out of the government agencies that are just given free rein and executive powers to levy new laws and in the form of regulations. So many of these corporations use Defense Department money to build things of their own accord off the books. That's going to take a long time. Excuse me. It's going to take a long time to just, to rip up the roots of these people from our infrastructure. And it won't be perfect. But it's whatever it is, it's going to be a hell of a lot better than someone who will just wholesale sell off the rest of the country and be done and dusted with. It'll be much better. Much better. I'd rather take someone who has at least the right intentions and wants to do good work and understands what the problem is than someone who is an absolute criminal. So, anyway, I think I will probably wrap up the video there. I think that will be all for this particular rant. Just wanted to touch base with you guys because it's been a few days since we've uploaded anything. The link will be pinned on my Twitter page. And hey, send me tweets if you want me to talk about something. If you think I'm an asshole, idiot, moron, please tweet at me on my Twitter page. If you want to troll the fuck out of me, please tweet me. Whatever the hell you want. It can be sports related. If you want to hear a rant on baseball or whatever, I'm totally happy to do that. But yeah, if you think I'm a dickhead and you want to say that Hillary Clinton is the God Queen of the universe or whatever it is you want to say, tweet me and I'll talk about it on the show. Or we'll definitely talk about it on the show. I want to get all of the Reality Check TV crew to react to it. It'd be a blast, be a great time. But yeah, if you want me to talk about stuff in these rants as well, please tweet me. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm happy to read all of it, talk about it, react to it, whatever. Maybe I'll start live streaming some of these, and you guys can react in live time too. That'd be lots of fun. That would be cool. So. Until next time, my friends, I want to get a debate preview and a debate reaction live stream going on Sunday, if possible, with the rest of the crew. I'll update you guys on Twitter about that, so please check back for that. Yeah, definitely tweet at us how you think the debate is going to go, what you think Trump is going to do. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Check out the Reddit page, which has a lot of the articles talking about the stuff I talked about today, Syria, all that kind of stuff. It's on the Reddit page, reddit.com/realitychecktv, link in the description. And you can come holler at me, bitch at me, scream at me, whatever, at RDFCFUT15 on Twitter. I should just put my Twitter page in the link in the description, too. I'll go ahead and do that. At RDFCFUT15, Thomas Milo, the Deplorable, the head Deplorable. I like being Deplorable. It's rather fun, don't you think? The Deplorable Thomas Milo on Twitter, so come hit me up there, and it'll be a great time. So thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it, you guys. And until next time, see you later.